Hey everyone, Parker did a job, and today I debated a boyfriend of someone who literally watches my live streams and does not support Donald Trump. So I tried to convince them for their sake, particularly to not support Donald Trump. And over the 50-minute debate, it seemingly is the case that we got pretty close to doing so, although they seemingly are someone who really likes billionaires and thinks that they're possibly going to be a billionaire in the future as well. But I asked them some really tough questions, and they were absolutely shocked when I asked them some of these tough questions. And they might be, changing their mind based upon some of the research that they will go through, based upon some of the things that I brought up to them. So make sure to watch this video, subscribe if you're new, like the video. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. You have some holidays?
I'm 28, but I actually didn't vote for Trump. My boyfriend did, and he wants to debate with you, and he's 35.
Perfect. I got you.
Hi, how are you doing? My name is David.
Okay, David, why'd you vote for Donald Trump?
Thank you for answering the call. We've been listening to you a lot lately. We're definitely big fans of you. Okay, so very quick, I would like to say, how would I like to start this? I find that there's a lot of bad things. There's a lot of bad qualities that he has. I think he's very arrogant. I think he's selfish. I can go kind of on about that. But for some reason, I think part of that's what makes him a good leader. I think the pride that he has, it makes him want to not look stupid in front of everyone else, if that kind of makes sense. The reason I voted for him I would say he has a track record his whole life of doing. There has been failures, but he has a track record his whole life of doing very well. And doing very big things. I think that does matter when you're in a position like the president. I think having that track record, having a resume like something like this is important in a position like this. The main reason I would say actually is the main reason that I voted for him is I think that he's so arrogant, kind of, and so self-centered that his pride is not going to want to allow him to do a bad job and look stupid in front of everyone. And I think that he's a genuinely smart person. He's never smoked cigarettes. He's never drank. I think he's smart. And I personally believe that he's genuinely trying his best. That's just my personal belief. I don't know what you think about that.
So you think a good leader is self-centered? You think a good leader doesn't really care about people as much? They're more self-centered?
I think that the qualities of a good leader is, and this could be even a company. I have a company as well, a pretty successful company. And not that I'm that, but I think a lot of leaders that you're going to find have this quality that they say, why not me? Why can't I do this? I think anyone that runs for president has a kind of almost like a cockiness about them.
Are you Christian?
Yes.
Okay, so think about Jesus. Jesus is a perfect leader, right? Is Jesus self-centered?
I don't think he is.
So then what your idea of a perfect leader is not that they're self-centered. So I don't know why you would argue that like a good leader in this context or a perfect leader would be someone who's self-centered, because seemingly that doesn't match up with your underpinning commitments in terms of Christianity.
That is a great point. To that, I would say not every leader is self-centered, but there are a large majority of leaders that are self-centered. But I wouldn't say every single one has to be.
Okay. So some are you would say, but self-centered isn't a better characteristic, right?
I think that when you look at like a lot of leaders, if you look at, for example, Elon, or if you look at a lot of leaders, I would say they have a lot of this quality about them that kind of says, I can do this. I can do this the best. They have this kind of quality that says it's almost like it's a little bit of a cockiness, but that's what makes them so great.
That'd be an issue though, because it is the case that like they have less of a care about people, right? Don't you want your leaders to like be someone that like really cares for the population and wants what's best for them, and isn't just going to do what's ever in their own self-interest?
That's a great point. And what I would say is it trickles down in a way that when a great leader, he wants to be such a good leader where he wants to prove everybody wrong. He as I think I would both know, he gets very kind of how can I explain it? Especially Donald Trump, he gets very hurt when he's attacked, and
Wait,
I
do
think it's
you
very.
want the president to be a narcissist?
I not necessarily. Not. I don't think you. I don't think that's a quality that you have to have. However, I do believe that that's a quality that he has that actually can be a positive and a benefit in certain circumstances.
Okay, but how so?
So a narcissist, it's really about him. And I think that he wants to convert everybody into loving him. I think that's kind of like the definition almost of a narcissist. They want everyone to love them. How do you make everyone love you? You do an amazing job.
Would he hurt people in order to make himself look good?
I think that in order to make himself look good, he's going to do the best possible job that he physically can do, and then
What do you mean by best, dude? Like the way that you're
Yeah.
granting best, right? Doesn't sound like it's in accordance with your own values, because what your own values are Christian values, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I would say
is he like feeding the poor? Is he like housing people who are unhoused? Is he like giving medical care to the sick? Is he like doing the things that Jesus would do? And if he's not doing the things that Jesus did, then again, why are you arguing that these are good characteristics for a leader? Sounds like what you're defining as good is independent of your religious beliefs there.
that's a good point, and I would say that not you don't have to be that in order to be a good leader, but I think that is a good quality. So to that point, this is what I would
Good in
say.
accordance to you, or good in accordance to your religion? Because I thought you couldn't define it outside of religion.
I would say that's a good quality in accordance to being a leader of the country.
Oh, good leader. Good.
So
When you say good, what is good in reference to? Is it your own values, or is it the values of your religion?
I would say that's I would say a lot of commerce. I would say commerce, and that's kind of one statistic that maybe a lot of presidents are put up against. When I say good, I mean when he is as him as president, I think he's going to genuinely try to make the economy that the best it's ever been. I think that by doing so, that's going to trickle down, and that's going to affect the middle class and the lower class as well.
There's
I
not
think
really an
it's gonna.
incentive for that money to trickle down. There's really only an incentive for the money to trickle up. So why wouldn't you do policies to make sure that there's like a sufficient base of people so that there's an active market for people buying things, right? Rather than make it be the case that like it's going to possibly trickle down because they don't really have the self incentive based upon profit to give the money to the worker unless they're going to be taxed otherwise. That's what I'm saying. Like you're hoping and praying that billionaires are just gonna like pay for everything for everyone, or that they're gonna pass it down to everyone. No, they're gonna make as much money as they can, and they're gonna keep as much money as they can, and they're gonna do things that benefit them. They're not gonna do things that benefit other people in society as much, right? Because their interest is towards themselves and their greed, right?
I am personally on and I totally understand that point. I'm personally on the in the camp of billionaires is what makes our country number one, and without billionaires, we first of all they pay the most tax. There's been no one in the history
Wait,
of
I
the
just want to
country
know there's more billionaires per capita in like Sweden
but there's not more billionaires.
per percentage of the population.
But I know, but there's not more billionaires in total. So
Obviously, but that's only because of population.
you're asking me to go ahead?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, take your time whenever you have to, do some shout outs. But as far as my position, what I personally believe is that billionaires is the reason why America's number one. And we have I believe I'm 35, and I believe that the younger generation, like the Gen Z and etc., we have this immediate reaction to hate the rich and eat the rich, and the rich are evil. I don't necessarily believe so. Could we find negatives, and could we pick apart things about these billionaires that are problematic? Absolutely. You can find that about the poor as well. But the fact of the matter is, these billionaires, they are creating the jobs for all of the other classes. No one pays more tax.
Actually, like economically speaking, I just don't really think that's the main driving force for the creation of jobs. The main driving force for the creation of jobs is the demand. Because someone is going to step in and supply because there's a profitability there. Okay? So if there is a sufficient consumer base, well, then there's going to be very profitable business. if there isn't a sufficient like consumer base, because you're just trying to help corporations as much as you possibly can, the consumer base can like get worse, and that could actually end up harming business as well. Having a strong consumer base is the best possible thing you could do, even for business. Business will benefit in the long run, right? Even from these policies that are meant to help people and give them a sufficient basis, because it builds up a consumer base.
And I agree, but in order to have the business in the first place, there has to be these entrepreneurs, these kind of self-centered, I can do everything.
They will naturally come about into the market because of the consumer base that exists.
They create the
Naturally.
consumer base.
No, that's just not. That is just totally false. That is totally false.
Apple,
The consumer
Steve
base.
Jobs had a famous
no.
quote
Just totally.
that
You're
said-
totally. You're just economically
Sure.
wrong. The consumer
Okay.
base creates the suppliers, right? Because if the suppliers, right, are not supported by the consumer base, well, then they have no profitability.
Before Mark Zuckerberg, there was no consumer base for, or maybe if you want to talk MySpace, there was no consumer base for social media or social media advertising. He created an industry where advertisers can go on the platform.
No. An industry was going to happen anyway, and he was one of the first ones to be there. That's like saying because I grew a platform before other people, like that would be true about me. That's like an insane take. They were just there at the market at the right time.
I think they
and they
deserve some
picked
credit
up
for
on
that.
the trend. If the trend didn't exist already for social medias that exist, right, then it would be the case that he wouldn't even got traffic.
There was no trend for the internet before Bill Gates and people like this created it. There was no trend.
Had to have been for the
didn't know
people to.
what the
There
internet
had
was.
to have been for the people to even be directed going towards social media. There was at least a trend for that to exist.
Yeah, even if you go a little bit one step behind social media, if the internet as a whole, there wasn't a trend in people had no idea what it was. They created.
Think about what are the
internet.
elements to get people to like social media. Did those
Well,
types of desires and aspirations
right,
and goals already exist amongst human beings? Absolutely. So again, those particular goals, aspirations, desires, those things, right, go into the demands that people have monetarily speaking for particular types of commodities and goods like social media, right? They're providing a particular service in this context.
Sure. I understand that. Well, I totally understand that point. I think we may be getting a little sidetracked. I mean, I guess what I was kind of trying to go by that is, these billionaires and things like this, even Donald Trump, they really are, their drive and their kind of reason why I have to be the best. I have to be better than everyone. It's weird. It's evil. It's not, I wouldn't say evil. It's narcissistic, but in a way that drives production. Like that drives.
How does that drive production?
I think people that have that type of personality, they are the ones that are extremely, extremely hard workers in not all aspects.
You think Donald Trump is a hard worker? Like that's how we would categorize him?
In my personal opinion, I think that he is one of the hardest workers that I've ever seen. He does not. One thing that I think anyone has to give him, good or bad,
how many times
give
did
up.
bro golf?
But that's the thing. You can't be 24/7 working. I actually just read an article on this 2 days ago. You have to have some aspect.
I mean, the amount of times he took off to go play golf is not just like a once or twice.
No, but you have to have. Steve Jobs did yoga.
I honestly, like, I genuinely.
You have to have an outlet, a mental outlet, in order to take on all the pressures.
I would say at least 80 to 90% of the chat has a harder and stronger worth ethic than Donald Trump. Like,
then why aren't they that successful?
Because they didn't inherit $400 billion from their dad.
He didn't inherit $400 billion.
He did, $400 million from his dad. Yes, he did. Accounting for inflation, he inherited $400 million from his dad. If I inherited $400 million from my dad, dude, I'd be I'd be a billionaire. Absolutely, easily. What? You put in the S&P 500 and you'll become a billionaire.
But okay, I'll take that to this point. So he started with. I've heard the story that he started with $1 million loan from his dad, but I'm not really sure the exact facts.
A small loan of $1 million. Do you think $1 million back then was a small amount of money?
So okay, but if you look at percentages, taking a million, bringing that to
Please. Just
7
think about it.
billion.
Think about it. Just think about the type of investment that you can engage in if you just have literally. If you're going to go back to then, that's going to be like multiple millions of dollars now. The 1 million back then, multiple millions of dollars, right? In terms of just starting up a business, that means that you have a greater likelihood of being able to create a profitable investment comparative to most people because they don't have that upfront investment and that capital. So practically, like you have essentially no competition at that level of capital investment. Does it make sense?
I understand, but he turned you. This is how we can say this. He turned that investment into, let's just say,
No shit.
200x.
If he didn't, he's dumb.
But okay, but let me,
Dude,
to
you
that
can literally
point,
go.
let's
You
just
can,
say all the
dude.
people in your follower that are in the chat. If you say they're just as hardworking, but did they do 200x times 1,000 or 10,000 that they have? So that would mean that they should be
If
at
they had
at
that initial
least
investment,
million to
it is
20 million.
it is a lot easier to multiple x that amount of money than it is to multiple x like a smaller amount of money, typically speaking, in terms of investments. Again, if you have a higher
Barbara from Shark Tank,
capital investment, you can expect to see a higher rate of return. Like, does that
but
make
I
sense?
understand.
Does that make sense?
It yes and no. I don't. Well, both of us
Yes
have
and
never
no.
been at the
What do you
level,
mean?
so we can't really say. Like I don't
Dude,
believe that you
if
can
I had
say
$1 million right
because
now,
it's
the business that I
you
could
don't have
buy,
the
the business that I could buy with $1 million is going to be a likely more profitable business because I can spend $1 million to buy it.
but that also brings you a whole bunch of more problems. There's people that say more money, more problems. It's extremely
I'll ask you
difficult
this question. Let me
mentally.
ask you this question.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's say someone put $1 million right into like Bitcoin right in like 2010. Okay, and by now they're at the age that they are now, and they have like billions of dollars. Okay, would you say that they're a good businessman, or they just get lucky?
I would say okay. So the Bitcoin, I would say it would be in the middle of that. I wouldn't say amazing businessman because it's really an investment. It's not like you're working every single day on a task. It's you just did it once. I think when you work every single day on a task, that makes you a hard worker. That's my personal belief. So I think it's somewhere in the middle of that. I think luck does have a played a part in it, but a hard worker is when you work on every single day. Let me ask you a question. Would you say that he's a hard worker or?
No.
Okay. That's the thing is, I
Does
don't
he
think
does
that
not
most
work every
people,
day?
I disagree. I disagree. Every single day, this guy, and I'm
The stats
watching
disagree
them.
with you.
Every single day, this guy has press conferences and on all these new things that are going into play, all these new bills, all these new things he's signing. I'm watching them every day. This man is working. I'm telling you,
So
every single day.
you like his press conferences?
I think that if you love him or hate him, I think that one thing you have to say is one thing he does not give up. He really does not give up no matter what. And that I value a little bit in a way that it's inspiring. He just
How is
never,
that unique? You just
um,
like you're glazing Trump, bro. Like beyond belief. Okay, like
I,
are you
as a
not thinking about whether or
businessman,
not these things are true with the other side?
you mean as far as the Democratic side?
Yeah, like what Kamala
I
Harris.
think I think Kamala and them are hard works as well. But before
She works every day. Does she not work every day?
she can she
She
can
didn't golf as much as Trump. That's for damn sure.
you do need a mental outlet, in my personal belief, when you are taking on such stressful situations. But I'll just say this point really quick. I just believe that he going into this presidency. I was a voter for him, and I think that people don't necessarily understand the stresses of what it takes to run a multi-billion-dollar business. I think it's very easy to look at him and say he's dumb or he's not a hard worker.
That
It
sounds
is so much
horrible.
harder. It's so much harder than people think.
That sounds
It's
horrible, dude. It sounds horrible. I cannot imagine if I had to manage a multi-billion-dollar business right now that I just inherited from my dad. You know
I
what I
can
mean?
do it.
That sounds horrible.
I'm telling you, this is the thing. You think that it's easy. It's not. I promise you, it's really not easy. I'm telling you. I don't own $1 billion business, but I own a very successful business, and this is a nothing. It's not definitely in the billions. It's doing well, and it's a lot harder than a lot of people think that have never done it before. My point is just to
Did
say
you inherit millions of dollars from your dad?
I started from scratch.
Then that makes sense. I understand why it was a lot harder. I get it. That is hard. To start from scratch is definitely fucking difficult. You know what's not difficult? Starting with millions of fucking dollars, okay? That's not difficult, okay? Those are radically different positions. Starting with millions of dollars, I don't think you understand how much of an upfront capital investment that creates in terms of your ability to be able to like have a more profitable investment, okay? So much more likely. Now, you starting from scratch, you definitely had to work way fucking harder than Donald Trump did, inheriting 40 million from his dad, accounting for inflation. I'm telling you.
The funny part is,
I promise you, I bet you worked way harder and you have way less.
Here's the thing, and I definitely understand that point. But here's the only thing that I would say. I work every single day, Monday through Sunday. The thing that I would say is even though he inherited, there's so much that we're not giving this guy. He's building skyscrapers. Like there's construction plans, there's blueprints, there's zoning.
No, that's not true. What policy? No, actually, you know who is building stuff? But Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They had a bipartisan infrastructure bill. Donald Trump advocated for a bipartisan infrastructure bill. He couldn't get people in Congress to work together. You know who did? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So, like, who actually is getting the infrastructure built? Not Donald Trump.
Do you believe that Joe Biden would have won if he was in the race in the last term? Would you have voted for him on the last term?
Yes.
See, that's the thing. Like, I believe that this man was a little bit past his prime mentally, slightly.
And I obviously can acknowledge that, but so is Trump. I mean, Trump brought up nuking hurricanes to limit their effect on the population. He brought up literally windmills causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. He talked about possibly using disinfectant by injection in order to fight COVID-19. I mean, dude, this guy talked about transgender operations on mice. He thought the Democrats were funding that when it was referencing transgenic to make mice biology operate more like human biology so that we can test the effect of particular types of things, right, on like what the effect that would be on human biology.
And I will agree with those. And I will not stand here and say I agree with every single thing he's done. But I don't think that anyone can stand behind, and I don't think anyone seriously, and that's actually knowledgeable, can stand behind the person they voted for and say, I agree with every single thing he's done. I can Google 1,000 things right now if I wanted to. I'm sure, I could, on what some really bad things that Biden's done, or some really weird things. And the fact of the matter is, both sides are going to do bad things. They're going to do weird things. But the fact of the matter is, I genuinely think that.
Can you bring up any weird things with Kamala Harris? Go for it.
Well, she wasn't never president, as far as like
she
her
was
and
the
vice
presidential candidate. She was the other candidate in this race.
I know, but you need to be president, because then like there's so much more news stories about you.
What do you mean?
And when you're president, you have so many outlets on you, and all these stories are coming up, and all these things. Kamala, you're a little bit more in the shadow.
Wait.
Sorry.
Donald Trump in 2016. Who do you think should have won, him, right, or Hillary Clinton?
I personally believe him.
Okay, but like, wasn't she like in the public view a lot more because she was within government? She was like the Secretary of State.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
So then, like, it sounds like she's more qualified then.
And there is a lot of, but that's the thing. Like, there's so many things that you can read on Hillary that was kind of shady as well. I think we can both agree in that aspect.
I think that Donald Trump is more shady than Hillary is. Like,
I understand.
Hillary.
I understand. I think that in the end of the day, this is just my personal opinion. I think that countries are kind of like companies in a weird way, where it is very important to have the best economy as possible, because the more economy you have,
Donald Trump does not make the economy better. Here, I need to thank a few people, but like, yeah, but go for it. You said that Donald Trump makes the economy better off.
I believe so. Yes, I believe so. I believe that personally, that I actually do believe this. In previous years, I think a lot of presidents were kind of skating. I think that they were staying in for the 4 years. They were doing some great things. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe that they were kind of skating, and they weren't every single day this guy is doing something new. I genuinely think that these tariffs, these things like that, I truly believe that, first of all, China is catching up to us at an alarming rate.
Hold up. Can you
Yes.
name a single Trump policy that you like?
I agree with the tariffs.
Okay. What is a
I
tariff?
agree with the tariffs. So what I mean by that is we are a lot of the times we're matching the tariffs that are
What is a tariff?
implemented. What is it?
Yeah.
It's just taxing the goods that are coming in slash or out of the country that we're purchasing.
Coming into the country from other countries around the world. Why do
Yeah.
you? Who pays the tariff?
Who pays the tariff?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like who pays the tariff? The people that are the people that are buying the products.
Okay. So do you want there to be higher prices for American consumers?
I think that it is important I think that it's important on the world stage to kind of stand up for ourselves a little bit. Just because if you look at the GDP of the top 10 countries and you look at the increases on what they're doing year over year, the YOY of for the past 10 years, America is not
Wait, you
advancing
think
as
tariffs
quickly.
increase the size of the GDP?
This is one aspect.
They don't. They do
This is
not increase GDP. Plenty of American businesses rely on aspects of their production process that come from countries around the world, which is going to reduce the amount of jobs for American companies that rely on those production imports.
I I don't believe so. I think that I personally think that if we impose tariffs, that I don't believe that they're going to match them in that way. I personally believe. I mean, this is something, of course, that I can do more research on. But I believe that there has to be a reason why. Okay, for example, China has higher tariffs on us than we do them. That's a fact.
Does Canada
And
have higher tariffs on us than we do them?
well, I just want to just finish for 2 seconds, if you don't mind. So China has higher tariffs on us than we do them, and their rate of their GDP increasing is growing faster than we are. We are. I think that there's
They have
reasons.
targeted tariffs. They don't have universal tariffs.
Either way, I
There's a
do think.
distinction. There's a very big distinction. One, two. What you're not taking into account is that if you just wanted to do reciprocal tariffs, well, then it would be aligned with Donald Trump's rest of his reciprocal tariff policy. The 10% tariffs on China, the 25% on Canada and Mexico. Those, right, are policies that are not reciprocal. Okay.
Okay.
He has a reciprocal tariff policy separated from that. So why do you
Yeah.
support these tariffs in the event that they're not reciprocal?
I Well, it's kind of like saying this. It's like, why does Apple, Apple doesn't necessarily have the same exact cost for a laptop as, for example, one of the cheaper companies, but they are the highest grossing company in the world. So you don't necessarily have to be reciprocal. I think it's important that you can charge what you believe is correct, and the revenue will come in. The revenue will follow. In the example in following Apple's structure, for example, they have the most expensive laptops. They have the most expensive everything, and I think there's a reason for that. I don't think you need to match all the competition. I believe that you, I believe that you should charge what you believe is correct, and then that will basically translate into the GDP and the economy. So I don't necessarily think it has to be
So
reciprocal.
what happened to
Just
this whole reciprocal thing?
I mean, it can be.
That's what your whole argument was, is that like they're
I
placing
guess
tariffs on us, why can't we do it on them?
what I'm trying to say is they're placing tariffs on us.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. You were like, they're placing tariffs on us, why can't we place it on them? Now it seems like you backed off of that. Now you're not saying that. You're now saying like, oh, even if it is the case that that's not true, like I'll still want the tariff to be placed on whatever we feel like it, which is bad because that hurts American consumers and American business.
I Well, the thing is, if it is working for some reason, it's working for China.
They don't have those tariffs on Canada and Mexico or on the
On
U.S.
They
side.
do on us.
No, not across the board.
To my knowledge, they do. They
No.
have before he was in office. They have, to my knowledge.
Do you think they have a 10% tariff on all of American goods across the board?
I don't know the exact numbers, and I mean the tariffs is something that, of course, I can. We could do more research on, but I don't have the exact numbers for that. But one thing that I guess I would just like to say this, and I know that you have a lot of callers and everything. I think that this president, I think that he knows business. I think that, for example, if you spend 10,000 hours in tennis, you're going to be very good at tennis. And if you spend 10,000 hours in basketball, you're going to be very good at basketball. I think that this president, he has business knowledge that a lot of maybe other presidents don't have. And I think that translates into a good leader.
How many good
Because
businessmen have 6 bankruptcies?
bankruptcies isn't necessarily that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes that's a tax reason. Sometimes that's a reason so you can start a new company. There's a lot of reasoning behind that, but that's
Can you
not
name one
necessarily.
good businessman with 6 bankruptcies?
There's Mark Cuban,
Does not
for
have six
example.
bankruptcies.
He has many failed companies.
Not six
Even
bankruptcies.
not exactly six, but every businessman that's a billionaire, you'll find that they have many
Isn't it
failed
like
companies.
one?
That have failed companies.
No, I'm pretty sure Mark Cuban is like one.
Mark Cuban has like 4 failed businesses before he started broadcast.com.
In terms of bankruptcies, I'm pretty sure he has one. I'd have to check
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we can definitely double check that. But as far as that, I mean, that's the thing. He's another billionaire. And these things do happen when you are at that level. Like the expenses are very, very high when you're dealing with things like that. Sometimes. The thing is, there's been here. I'll just leave. I'll just say one last point. There's been many. There's been many businessmen who have received loans from their parents. There's been many. That's happened time and time again. There's many examples. He turned. He became the president from way
Actually,
back.
apparently there is no evidence to suggest that he's been filed for bankruptcy. So I haven't seen.
I
There's a company backed by Shark Tank's Mark Cuban that filed bankruptcy, but that's a different one.
Yeah, I think that in companies in general, I mean, I can do my own research definitely on this, and I'm sure if I Google, I'm sure if I Google this, I will find many companies or many billionaires that have had many bankruptcies. I'm sure I'm sure me and you can both find this if you type this in. I'm sure. It's something, unfortunately, that does happen when you're at that level. Sometimes you have to close a company and you have to start it.
6 times.
Those are his failures, which we can focus on. But there has been many successes as well.
Like what?
Well, if you look at his net worth, for example, if you look at his net worth, he didn't inherit.
Half of it's Truth Social.
That's not an excuse. However it got there, we're talking about being a businessman.
So
And
again, Nancy Pelosi makes money off of her political position, and you guys are like insider trading. Donald Trump does it, and you're like good businessman.
I don't necessarily can speak on Nancy Pelosi, but what I can speak on is as far as Trump, for example, he got a loan from his parents and he turned that into $7 billion, and everyone, you, me, all of the followers that are listening, it's not. That's a very, very, very difficult thing to do. I know that we can strip this guy of his accomplishments very easily, but I promise you, it's not
A
an easy
multi-million-dollar
task.
loan and a literal multi-hundred-million-dollar inheritance. And oh my God, I can't believe he made it to being a billionaire. Go ahead.
My girlfriend that gave me the phone, she's not a supporter. She has no part in this. I just want to let you know. She just wanted me to. She follows you because she really likes your debates and everything, and she's not the biggest fan of him. And I just want to make that known. This
So then
this is
I'll ask you some
my
tough.
doing.
I'm going to ask you some tough questions for her sake. By the way,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you vote for someone held civilly liable of forcefully penetrating a woman's vagina against her will?
This is what I would say to that point. I would say, first of all, I don't. This is what I would say. I've heard you say this question to to many of the callers, and what I would say to that point is, you can. I think that it's impossible not to find dirt on someone. And I don't, I think that, if you go back to the presidents of this country, many of them have had people murdered. Many of them have had people killed of US. Now, I'm not talking about Russia. I'm not talking about other countries of this country. There has been many, many things that presidents have done. You can pick apart dirt on people. And I will, there's no aspect of me right now that says that is right. And I stand behind that by any means. I think that's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. I think it's horrible. I If it's true, I think it's absolutely horrible. But I will say that you can find dirt on every single person that you try to. I can probably find it on you. You could probably find it on
You will
me.
not find that on me to that degree.
Not
You'll find that on
not that
you.
extent.
Not you saying that
No,
like you. Not, that's a crazy.
not to that extent.
That's a
Not to that
crazy claim
extent.
about yourself that you have some shit like that. That's insane. I just want to clarify, right? Like you will not be able to find anything like that about Kamala Harris, the other candidate that was available to a vote for in this election. Okay. Secondly, I just want to let you know we're talking about sexual abuse, forcibly penetrating a woman's vagina against her will. Okay. This is like a completely separate thing from like any typical type of political thing you could bring up. This is a ridiculous thing to even say that you could find anything in comparison that's similar from Kamala Harris. Okay, and also I can reduct this even further. Would you vote for someone held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child?
I mean, of course, who can say yes to that? Of course, who can say yes to that? But I don't. I can't really speak on that because I don't. I'm not. I don't really know exactly what happened. I don't know.
You don't know? You don't know if you would vote for someone held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child?
Well, at the moment, we're kind of talking about this, like why we support him. I can't speak on things that he may have done or may not have done. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I don't really know what happened, and I
No, just
just
think
am.
about it this way. Given that it is true that someone was held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child, would you vote for them?
I guess that would depend on it's kind. I guess that would depend on the other candidate and what have they done as well.
So yes, there is a
So
circumstance where you would.
I would have to. I mean, it's it. If you say, would you vote on someone that sexually abused a child, and then the other candidate, would you vote on someone that sexually abused 10 child? So it depends on what the other candidate did as well. So I can't really. Of course, the question that you're asking,
Here,
it's
let me clarify this because
it's-
apparently this needs to be clarified. Would you vote for someone held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child if that was not true on the other side?
I would have to if I guess there would be very hard to me to know that that is completely true. Has that been true? Has he been tried and convicted for that?
I'm not saying anything's true about Trump. I'm just asking you, would you vote for a person that was held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child where it was not true for the other candidate?
No one can. I mean, no one can answer yes to that. I mean, it's of course no.
Okay, so of course no. Okay, so what is the difference between a woman and a child insofar as that you would say that you'd vote for someone who sexually abused one but not the other?
I don't really understand the question.
You said you would vote for someone held civilly liable of sexually abusing a woman, but you wouldn't vote for someone held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child. So
No,
what is the relevant
never
difference?
said that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm sorry if I'm misconstruing what I'm saying. I apologize. I don't mean to in any way. I didn't come on here in any way to you know induce some type of anger or anything like that. I'm totally coming on like completely peaceful, and I apologize. Um, of course not. As far as the woman, yes. I mean, of course not. Anyone is hard. I said what my answer was it also depends on what the other person has done. Now, what have they done? I mean, I'm not really sure, I guess the answer would be it
I just told you,
depends.
given that it's not true about the other side. Okay, how about I'll give you this. Donald Trump held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child. Would you vote for him? over Kamala Harris.
And that's the thing. It would depend on exactly what Kamala has done.
Kamala. Now, given what you know about Kamala Harris, would you rather vote for Donald Trump held civilly liable of sexually abusing a child or Kamala Harris?
I would have to do more research and to see what she has done. That would be really my answer to that.
Based upon what your current knowledge about her is.
I wouldn't be able to give an answer until I like fully see what each person has done on both sides.
Why didn't you say that before voting?
What do you mean?
Why didn't you say that before voting? Why did you say
w-
I should know what side I support or what side's done what before I vote?
Because I wasn't even aware of these convictions and things like that. I mean, if they are true, I that's the thing. If I would have to do more research, I'm not even aware of. I would have to be more aware of both these things. I didn't go into the voting booth and I know that these things 100% happen, and then I cast my vote. If that was kind of your question, I mean, the thing is, to that
So
point,
if you
really,
didn't
what
need
I
it to
would say,
cast your vote in the other circumstance, why do you need it now?
that's just what I would need now. That's just kind of what I would
Why?
need now. Because I would have to give you like an educated answer on the debate, because I'll tell you why. Because beforehand you're giving, because now I'm receiving new information that I didn't have prior. So prior I went on the basis of there's two candidates, this, and then my feelings on both of them. When you're telling me this information, that
But you
produces
didn't
a
know
new,
anything about Kamala Harris, so how would you make that assertion back then?
that I'm saying, when you give new information here to me, that means I have to go back to the drawing board and I have to do more research on both people and whatnot. But I mean, if you look at
Do you know anything about Kamala Harris at all?
I know some. I know some. I mean, I'm not doing an extreme amount of research, but
What do you know?
basically what, the main things that are on the news and some things that happened in the last 4 years of the presidency of the last term.
Like,
I I don't believe that her and Joe, in my personal opinion, did personally the best job. I feel like I was a very big fan of Obama. I did vote for
can you tell
Obama.
me what she did?
Her specifically,
Uh huh.
I would have to do more research on that and
You
go
don't know.
back.
You don't know anything she's ever done.
I think that's a problem, and I'll
Yeah,
tell you
yeah, yeah.
why.
Wait. So how'd you
I
even make
should.
the determination of whether or not you wanted to vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris
That's
originally, given that you
that's
know
a great
absolutely
question.
nothing about Kamala Harris?
That's a great question, and this is how I would answer that. When you've done great things, the general public knows. I would consider myself kind of like the general public. I don't think that you need to do deep dives into presidents to see why they're good
How
or
about
see why
how
they're
about this? I got you. Would you rather vote for like Donald Trump held civilly liable of sexually abusing a woman, or some like random person in the United States? Literally,
I would.
like a random number generator for a person in the United States, or Donald Trump held civilly liable of sexually abusing a woman.
And I
I
know
take the
for
random number generation.
and I know for like 100% fact that that actually happened.
No, I'm just asking. Like in that
Is that what you
circumstance,
mean?
in that circumstance, would you rather take the random number generated person or Donald Trump?
And Donald Trump did what was that? I'm sorry.
Donald Trump held civilly liable of sexually abusing a woman.
I would do more research on to like what happened exactly in the trial.
What?
I would I would do more research on to if that
I'm just
actually
asking
happened.
if you'd rather vote for someone held civilly liable of sexually abusing a woman, right, or a random American, and you can't make that determination.
What do you mean by civilly liable, if you don't mind?
Appreciate the cap. In a civil court, a unanimous decision from a jury determined that they forcefully penetrated a woman's vagina against their will.
That or a random person?
Yeah, or a
It
random
would
person in
be
the
kind of
U.S.
the same answer. It would be kind of the same answer as before. I would have to do research on what they have done. I wouldn't
They
really
don't, no,
like that's,
you don't know who they are. All you know is that it's just some random average person.
I mean, that's a very odd question. I don't really know what that really has to. It's kind of a very odd question. I mean, it's a little bit of an odd question. I mean, I don't want to come on here and say that I'm a Republican through and through, and no matter who votes, I automatically choose them, and that's just who I am. That's who I've been since I was young. I do actually take both parties into consideration. I did for Obama. I thought that he was the better candidate. But in this particular situation, the fact that I knew nothing about Kamala or what she's done, I think speaks.
Kamala, would you like to answer my question?
Well, I mean, we keep going back to these kind of very extreme, kind of odd questions. But I mean, I don't think that really is relevant at the moment. I think it's between two
So no.
candidates. I think it's between two candidates. It was between Trump and it's between Kamala. Kamala. I'm sorry.
Kamala. Yeah.
I'm nervous. All right, so it's between and Kamala. I just haven't heard of
Jesus
any of
Christ,
her
I'm gonna cry
accomplishments.
myself. So you don't want to answer the question?
Of course, I don't support rapes. I mean, that's not even a question. Of course,
So then you would take the
I'm a nice
average.
guy.
So you take the average person over Donald Trump in that scenario, right?
Well, no, my answer was who is the average person. That really would be my answer.
I'm saying a random number generated selected person in America.
To be honest with you, my answer would be I probably wouldn't vote because my luck is going to be I'm going to vote for this person and they have 4 convicted rapes. My answer would probably I just wouldn't vote. I don't know who I'm voting.
You think the average
I don't
American?
think that's fair.
You think the average American has 4 grapes that they've convicted of?
I would have I wouldn't here's here's my answer. In order to actually cast a vote, I need to know both parties. I need to know both candidates, and that's just my answer. I would
You
not
didn't need
cast a
that when you
vote,
voted. You did
and it's
cast your vote without
completely
knowing.
random.
So do you regret your vote?
No, I knew both
Well, I have a
candidates.
question. Do you regret your vote?
It's not Kamala wasn't random.
Do you regret your vote? And her
No,
name is Kamala. Okay, so
Kamala.
if
I'm
you
sorry.
don't regret your vote, then how can you sit there and say that you require all this evidence to like vote when you didn't even know anything about her when you voted? You should regret your vote given that you don't know enough.
The fact that I didn't know about her, I think, is an answer in itself. I think that the fact that I didn't know about her, that to me means what has she done? If she was so great, there has been many great vice presidents in the past. If she has done, I would hear about it in the headlines. I'm an
Can I ask
average
you a question?
general. Sure.
Can you name a single thing a vice president has done in U.S. history?
Um, yeah, I think that let's. I mean, you're putting me on the spot here, but I think that Dick Cheney has done good things when he was vice president.
That was a crazy take, but you didn't tell me what they did.
I think that Dick Cheney did a lot to help the economy when he was a vice president.
What did he do?
All I can say is that he did a lot to help the economy. I know
Like
that.
what?
I don't. This was years ago.
Like what?
I don't have the exact specifics. This was years ago, but
I,
I do.
I asked you for a specific thing a vice president has done in U.S. history, and seemingly you don't have an answer to that question. So how are you going to like evaluate and say that like, oh, me not knowing what she's done is
I
evidence
can answer
of
that.
like her
I
not
can
doing
answer that.
anything when you don't know a single thing a vice president has done in history? So are you
I can
assuming that
answer
every
that.
vice president hasn't done anything?
No, I can answer that. When Dick Cheney was a vice president, I remember him a lot in the headlines, and I kind of remember. I for some reason I don't know the exact specifics. I'm on the spot a little bit right now, but I do remember when he was vice president that I was constantly seeing these things in the Post, in the Times, these things, and I remember his name popping up here, popping up there, popping up here. I don't have the exact details, of course. I'm on the spot right now, but I do remember seeing his name quite often. I don't remember seeing Kamala's name really when at all during these 4 years. I think that, in my opinion, I think that
So
it
you
is
voted for
important
someone based on how many times you've seen their name?
to be honest, I think that is indicative of like what the good things that they've done
Really? So, but you couldn't even mention any accomplishments.
of Dick Cheney.
Any of the vice presidents, or do you know any accomplishments of Trump?
I don't remember when Dick Cheney was vice president. Unfortunately, I don't. I don't remember specifics like I was saying, but I mean,
I'm
at the
asking,
end
can
of
you
the day,
name one thing Trump has ever done?
I mean, of course, I agree with for one thing, I agree with the Space Force. I know that's kind of sounds maybe a little bit crazy, but I think that's very forward. I don't think that's something that we can understand now. I think that might be we understand in 100 years. I think that the Space Force is something that is. I think that's interesting. I like that. Also, I agree
I'm
with
sorry.
you.
I'm just gonna clarify. The only thing that you've brought up the entire time of someone that someone's done is
That's
Space
just
Force. That's the
that's
only
just
thing you
popped
know
into my
about.
head right now. We can
Let me
laugh
guess. Are you
now,
like an
but
Elon Musk stan? Do you think he's like Tony Stark?
I personally am. I personally do like Elon, in my
Okay.
personal
Okay.
opinion.
We'll talk about this here in a second. Let me think. What were we just saying?
We were, I guess, going to brush on Elon.
What's up?
We were, I guess, going to brush on Elon, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay. So why are you very pro Elon?
This is just a personal opinion. Again, I'm coming out of complete peace and I'm not in any way trying to bring any type of hate to the chat or anything like that. I'm coming from complete, this is just my personal opinion. It may not be correct. And I apologize if I'm offending anyone. I really am. It's just my personal opinion. As a business owner, I really look up to him. And I find that he is a very, very hard worker. I really look up to people that have a crazy work ethic. I think he does. I don't think anyone can argue that. Are there things that we can pick apart that
I have
Elon
a
has
question.
done?
Would you like see him as like Tony Stark?
I mean, I don't know. What kind of question is that? I
Would
mean,
you say like he's the Tony Stark of our world?
I guess he may be one of the closest, maybe top 10, or I would say, and it's a weird question. I mean, I would say I do think maybe he's close. If you had to pick a human being on planet Earth that was the closest, I would say he's close-ish, I guess you could say. It's kind of an odd question, but I look up to his hard work. I think everyone should be like that and look up to that. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay. Okay. Um, again, so you just like whoever has the most money, you think you'd vote for. Okay, would you prefer Bill Gates
That's
over
not true. That's not necessarily true. It's not about money. It's not necessarily about money. It's about, I think it's about work ethic. That's the thing. I think work ethic speaks
Okay,
volume.
how do you identify who has a larger work ethic? You said
Sorry. I guess your question was, do I like choose someone based on dollar amount? And I don't necessarily think that's true. But work ethic, I think, does correlate to dollar amount. It is kind of like the scoreboard in a way. Like I would vote for Mark Cuban. I think that I think that someone in the seat of the president should
wait,
have an
who has
insane
higher
crazy
work ethic, Mark Cuban or Donald Trump?
That's a great question. That's a great question. That's a great question. If I had to say who has a higher work, I think it's very similar. If I had to put an answer on that, I would probably say that's a good question. I'd probably say Donald. I'd probably say Donald, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Mark Cuban he worked until he's about, I think right now he's in his 50s, I believe, something like that. And he's doing a lot of investing. He's still working, don't get me wrong, but he kind of is not slowing down, but he's coasting a bit. Whereas
Is there anyone you believe has a better work ethic than Donald Trump?
yeah, I wouldn't say he's number one in the world. Absolutely. I think Elon, he has, I think, an amazing work ethic as well. I
So
think
would you rather vote for Donald Trump or Elon?
that's a really good question. I mean, to be honest with you, I would have to do more research, of course, but I mean, I think Mark Zuckerberg has an amazing work ethic. I think Jeff Bezos has an amazing work ethic. I think Jeff Bezos would be a great president. Personally, I think he's. I
Dude,
think he's
you
a great
are
guy.
just a billionaire, Glazer. It's actually wild.
Billionaires are more
you
important
glaze
than
every
people
billionaire,
think.
bro.
Billionaires are so much more important than everybody thinks. They really are. People want to. I think they want to hate on them, but they're so important. Like people say,
Do you think
Jeff
that?
Bezos should
Do you
buy
think
the
someday you're
Amazon.
going to be a billionaire?
It's possible. is possible. Absolutely. Yeah, you can even ask my girlfriend now. I tell her all the time, I really think I can be someday. I truly believe that.
You know what?
But they'll buy
You
Amazon
know
the
what?
next day.
If you become a billionaire someday, just take literally like 1% of your net worth, right? Just take 1% of your net worth and just donate it to me one day. You know what I mean?
To be honest, that's not a bad impersonation. I actually like that. That wasn't bad.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Make sure to check out some of the other videos that I posted on my channel. Plus, you can watch my daily live streams where I debate people every single day on this YouTube channel. Just make sure to subscribe and like the video if you have not already. And have a fantastic day, everyone.